There's a new top unrestricted free agent on the market, and it's one we're finding out should have been there all along. Malik Beasley, welcome back. Now, who can sign him? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Pistons sharpshooter Malik Beasley, according to Shams Charania, is no longer a target in the federal gambling investigation conducted by the Eastern District of New York, according to his attorneys. Statement saying that months after the investigation commenced, Malik remains uncharged and is not the target of this investigation. An allegation with no charge, indictment, or conviction should have the catastrophic consequence this has caused Malik. It has literally been the opposite of the presumption of innocence. So ESPN reported on June 29th. So literally 2 days before free agency officially kicks off. Well, actually 1 day before, a day and a half, let's call it, before free agency officially begins in the NBA, that Beasley was under this federal investigation. And that meant that no team would touch Beasley. No team was interested in signing him in free agency. It was like, poof, he was just gone. That's it. He's off the market. And he had just had a really big season for the Detroit Pistons. In fact, if you look, Malik Beasley last season, 9.3 threes attempted per game. That's ranked 7th in the NBA, and he shot them at a 42% clip, 3.9 made threes per game last season. One of the best shooters out there on the market, certainly a skill set in high demand, just 28 years old, put up 16 points per game last season for Detroit. So Malik Beasley was a player that was going to be in high demand in free agency. In fact, according to Shams Charania, the Pistons were going to give him a 3-year, $42 million contract, and suddenly that was no longer the case once this investigation commenced. And as ESPN notes, he ranked second in total points and total made three-pointers off the bench and made 248 catch-and-shoot threes, the most by any player in a season since player tracking began in 2013-2014. So basically ever, the most catch-and-shoot threes ever in a season by Malik Beasley, certainly feasting in Detroit with all the attention being paid to Cade Cunningham. However, the Detroit Pistons have already gone and signed Caris LeVert to the full mid-level exception, and because of that, they can only give Malik Beasley $7.2 million. They do still have his rights, but the most they can give him is $7.2 million. Detroit went and moved on. They signed Duncan Robinson. They signed Caris LeVert. They signed Javonte Green. In fact, they probably are not doing those things. They're certainly not signing Duncan Robinson. Malik Beasley been available. Instead, what they did was they wound up giving Duncan Robinson $16.8 million this season, and then a fairly creative contract, $15.9 million next season with only $2 million guaranteed, and then a completely non-guaranteed $15.1 million contract the following season. So Duncan Robinson not only got essentially the money that probably would have gone to Malik Beasley, but also takes over that role as the bench shooter for the Detroit Pistons, as somebody who can come in and space the floor for Detroit. So who can sign Malik Beasley to more than $7.2 million now that here we are getting closer to the end of August? Most teams have used their cap space. Most teams don't have roster spots. Well, here's the list. The Chicago Bulls, the Indiana Pacers, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Wizards all have the ability to offer Malik Beasley more than $7.2 million, and the Brooklyn Nets also have cap space right now of more than $20 million. So this is a situation where perhaps the Nets, who have been hanging on to their cap space, haven't signed Zaire Williams just yet officially, same thing with Dameron Sharp to try to maintain their flexibility, could swoop in and offer a big contract to Malik Beasley. Now, does he want to sign with the Brooklyn Nets, who aren't expecting to be a winning team this season? That's certainly a question mark. But again, you've got some teams that can actually outspend the Detroit Pistons and offer more money. So it'll be fascinating to see how this plays out. But ultimately, this was a big negative for Malik Beasley. Of course, he would have gotten an immediate contract with the Detroit Pistons, but for the Pistons as well, they would have preferred to have just signed Malik Beasley when free agency began. At this moment, he hasn't been charged, and that cost him that contract that he was going to get from the Pistons, that $42 million deal. Now we'll see. Does he want to be a Chicago Bull, an Indiana Pacer, a Pelican? Does he do a 1 or a 2-year contract with the Detroit Pistons and try to get out and then hit free agency and try again next year? What ultimately happens here? Do the Brooklyn Nets swoop in with a big offer? This is going to be a fascinating situation, one that might see the Pistons lose Malik Beasley, one that might see Malik Beasley ultimately lose money because of this investigation. Now, could Beasley also just decide to go try to win right now? Yeah, the New York Knicks have been listed as a team that would have interest in Malik Beasley as well, but the most they can offer is a veteran minimum. Could he sign somewhere on a 1-year veteran minimum deal if he really wants to be part of a playoff team that could make a real push? Perhaps that's something to keep an eye on. But again, there are a number of teams that can offer significantly more money than that, but none of them really look like teams that are prepared to make a deep playoff run. Particularly the Indiana Pacers would be the exception, of course, but the injury to Tyrese Halliburton obviously is something that will hold them back there. But we do have a new top free agent on the market. I just talked about it the other day. The top 5 free agents that are still out there, guys like Malcolm Brogdon, guys like Russell Westbrook. You've got Trey Lyles, Ben Simmons, players like that. Kai Jones still out there. Maybe Precious Achua. There's a few names out there, but Malik Beasley certainly vaults to the top of the list. Assuming we're not including the restricted free agents, guys like Jonathan Kuminga. We'll have more on him in just a little bit. Guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Cam Thomas. We're omitting those kind of guys, Quentin Grimes, and then the guys that we are just kind of earmarking for the Golden State Warriors, Al Horford, Gary Payton II, D'Anthony Melton. So the true free agents actually available, not verbally committing to a team like some of those guys are with the Warriors, not the guys stuck in restricted free agency right now, but the true free agents that are available. Malik Beasley is now very clearly the top guy on the market, one of the best shooters in the NBA, suddenly, surprisingly, becomes available. So who will wind up signing him? Where will he go? Will he stick with the Detroit Pistons on a lesser deal than what he could have gotten? Will he sign on a bigger deal to a team that maybe doesn't really have a strong playoff push in their future? Will he take a veteran minimum somewhere and link up with a contender? Give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.